shining. I like $1 million deals. Where's my pen? Bitch, I'm signing. I like those Balenciagas, the ones that look like socks. I like going to the Tula. I put rocks all in my watch.
Welcome back to the Coliseum of Fantasy Knowledge. This is the IDP Fantasy Empire. Coming at you, week 1 is here. It's now officially in the books. We just got finished with the Raiders game. Feels good to be back, man. Feels good to be in the film room, cranking stats, watching film, watching these guys, these new rookies, these vets. It's fun to watch.
Yep, just two drunk dudes in the basement.
Pretty much. What's your overall impression of week 1 before we dig into each game?
Week 1, I did all right fantasy-wise. I know there were some listener questions that we had where we were a little off. A lot of this comes down to risk assessment. And a lot of the times, whenever you get those questions, you want to give back to the listener and you want them to make a conservative effort and to get back what they're putting in, you know. Although I wanted to swing for the fences, I was asked if I should start JPP or Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack was supposed to be on a snap count. JPP was expected to play the whole game. We kind of expected Khalil Mack to do Khalil Mack things. You know, but I expected JPP to have a more productive game.
And so overall for week 1 for me, I thought that there were a lot of rookies stepping up on both sides, defensive and even offensively. I know we don't cover a lot of offense, but we were talking about before the show. I mean, I thought there were a lot of rookies that did a lot of good things out there.
And second-year guys, Kenny Galladay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, guys finally coming in their own, and stupid owners who should have played Galladay in their flex, but still would have just been 1 point better than Landry, but still 1 point means a lot difference. But yeah, say I'm in 3 leagues right now, and I think I'm going to win 2, lose 1. But I scored the most points in one of my leagues, and just got lucky. I got Kamara, and I had some good play from Julio, even though I didn't mean to auto-draft him. It just kind of happened that way.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go into week 1, man. We're going to start with some few news and notes about some injuries to watch out for.
Really, these are just the big news items. There's a bunch of other small flyer items, but we thought these were important. Ezekiel Ansah left the game with a shoulder injury. This is important because he is probably a higher class defensive end that you're going to be paying for. His replacement probably is not worth picking up. I wouldn't be looking to pick up any of the defensive linemen for the Lions right now. Their pass rush was minimal against the Jets tonight.
I think it makes for a better case for Hyder in case you're looking for one, because they released Zettel, which I've talked about. I thought that was a stupid move because I thought Zettel was a good playmaker. So I think that's going to hurt the Lions now, especially after getting just roasted by the Jets, who scored 3 touchdowns in less than 3 minutes. So I think that's going to hurt them because they were really expecting this is hopefully to be a big leap year for Ansah.
Right. We've got Joe Hayden with a grade 1 hamstring strain. I expect Artie Burns to step up and be the guy to own in Pittsburgh. I don't know if you saw anything different in your film session.
No, I would say, honestly, Burns is playing well enough that he probably will. So that makes sense to me.
Xavier Woods is out with a hamstring injury. Brown was the guy that actually came in and played for him. So I'm not really taking much away from that. There was another guy that I liked. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tease that later.
Okay, works for me.
Shaq Lawson was evaluated for a hamstring injury. Again, this is going to be week to week. Were you starting him to begin with?
No, I did not start him this week. I went with Mike Daniels this week, who had a nice little game. So it worked out nice for me.
Emmanuel Ogbah could miss 2 to 3 weeks with an ankle injury.
Significant because this is the same foot that he broke last year that he missed games with. So that's the only fear. I think they said he might have missed a high ankle sprain, but we'll see how it goes.
And Kevin Johnson was expected to miss significant time with his second head injury, cornerback for the Texans.
Yep, scary stuff getting that second head injury. Usually when you start getting the second one, that's when you start getting that waiver territory.
Oh, you take this as your boy?
Oh, yeah. Of course, like I say every year, I'm going to lose at least 3 players on IR. I've lost 2. I've already lost Hunter Henry, and now I've lost Neal. Safety for the Falcons. I was pretty sad, man. I was at work, so I was just catching bits and pieces, and I rolled back twice, and I saw him on the ground, so I was worried that he was just going to be in and out, and then I got home, and he'd only scored 3 points, so I knew something had to be up. It's a big hit for the Falcons. That's one of their centerpieces of that backfield.
For a lot of people, too, in fantasy, a lot of people probably paid that high price for him, and that's why I don't pay high prices for safeties, because I don't think it's worth it. Randy Gregory could face suspension with substance abuse. This is what, his third?
I don't know, man. I've lost track. Like, this is just...
But it should be 8 to 12 games.
Yeah. So pretty much mostly the season, honestly. But the Cowboys keep bringing them back.
I'll go ahead and take the first game. It was Thursday night football. I do it a little bit different than Paul, but you'll kind of see how I do it. It was the Falcons versus the Eagles. You've got Deion Jones leading the team with 9 total, 4 solo tackles. From here on out, I'm going to say 9 for 4. He had an interception. Trufant went 6 for 6. Poole went 6 for 5 and got a sack. McKinley got a sack. And then on one of the plays, Takk McKinley goes off sides, and then he gets a sack on the very next play. This is one of the better plays by Takk throughout the night. Alford is getting roasted by Aguilar consistently in man coverage. That's one thing that I noted. Aguilar has never been that guy that I expected to roast corners, and we haven't really seen a lot of that from Alford, especially on the other side of Trufant. So Alford is that guy that I'm going to be looking for if I'm looking for a corner on this team. Vic Beasley is getting ran through. He set out most of the preseason, and how often do we see this coming back to be a problem, you know? Again, a guy that hasn't been very productive in the past 2 years since he moved from defensive end to linebacker and now back to defensive end. Keanu O'Neal went down with cramps. He was back later on in the second quarter to intercept the ball. He left the game with a knee injury. As we have found out, he is done for the season. Devondre Campbell is flowing well, and he looks great in coverage. This is something that he's been needing to work on for a while, is the way he looks in coverage, but run support, he's always been a stud. Deion Jones got a stinger and left with a knee injury. He came out for a few plays, and then he came back with an interception later on. Next week, they play the Carolina Panthers at home, and my guy that I'm going to pick up is DeMonte Casey. He drove through Zach Ertz and jarred the ball out for an interception, and he's been one of those guys that I've been keeping in the back of my mind 4 times like this. I never expected him to get a chance to play, but with this injury, he's one of those guys I'm going to be looking to pick up. For the Eagles, you've got Hicks, who goes 7 for 5 with 1.5 sacks. You've got Jalen Mills, who goes 6 for 6. Darby goes 6 for 5. Long gets 1.5 sacks, and Cox also gets a sack. Brandon Graham is taking over at the start of the second quarter. Nathan Gary is getting a lot of snaps because he's playing in the absence of Nigel Bradham. Nigel Bradham was on a 1-game suspension, so I expect that to be nullified in weeks to come unless Bradham gets hurt, which he has been known to do. But Nathan Gary, he didn't really impress me. Hicks blew up Freeman in the A-gap blitz for a sack. I don't know if you saw that play. That was amazing.
I was actually able to catch that one on my break, so it worked out perfectly.
McLeod jumped a route but dropped a pass later on in Atlanta territory where he could have taken it to the house. Jalen Mills got destroyed on a double move. He's been one of those guys that we've been pumping this offseason. I expect him to snap back and to have a better week next week, especially at Tampa Bay.
And that's what I've gotten from Jalen Mills before, is this high-low. Some games he'll be super efficient, and then some games I'm like, what, he threw up 2 points?
Not only that, but he goes 6 for 6. That's 12 points.
Yep.
You know, can't really complain. Darby is locking down Julio Jones in one-on-one coverage. Did you expect to see that?
I mean, for how many balls that Matt Ryan was forcing in there, I mean, I was hoping Darby's going to get some picks off of it, you know, especially late, because he was just straight feeding Julio. Which, me personally, on the offensive side, I'm like, why don't you run Calvin Ridley underneath Julio? Like, give him an option underneath. So, that's just my own thing.
And then Rasul Douglas ended up baiting Matt Ryan for a pick. Next week, again, the Eagles play at Tampa Bay. Mills is that guy that should be owned in every league. I think he's going to be one of the top corners. And that's who I've got as my waiver wire pickup.
All right, my first game was the Jags and Giants. I got to watch part of this game when I was eating my lunch at Bubba's, so it was kind of fun to watch that one. For the Giants, I always start with the home team. For Jenkins, cornerback, he went 7 total, 5 solo, 1 interception. Ogletree, who came over from the Rams, he had 7 total, 3 solo. And Riley, the other side cornerback, had 3 total, 5 solo. For me, Jenkins was looking really good when he came in and had a lot of solo tackles on Fournette early in the game. Jenkins was honestly just working the field. He was working every wide receiver. Blake Bortles likes to throw those sideline balls, and he was able to shut off the wide receiver and be able to make plays on the ball. It was evident because he had a beautiful sideline pick later in the first quarter. Just turned his head at the right moment, got his body around, and caught the ball. This is something we've seen from him before, back when he was really shadowing Dez and really got the best of him when they were playing each other. A guy who I've really been looking forward to seeing this year, Eli Apple. He was making really good plays in man coverage. And also some better in zone, but really he was sticking better in man, which I was really glad to see because it makes me feel like he's hopefully getting on the right path of being back to an efficient starter. The one guy who came on late in the second half for me was Snacks. I love Snacks, man. He's one of my favorite guys to watch. He was really just making plays, but not necessarily getting the fantasy numbers that we would want. But there was one play in particular where he straight took the center, pushed him out the way, got the running back, and swift him to the other side, and almost got in there. I mean, he caused pressure right up the middle on the Jags, and it messed up their whole bubble screen. So I really love it when Snacks gets out there. And the great thing about how this new defense for him is going to work is he's going to be able to rotate in a little bit more, hopefully keeping him with fresher legs. Because when he comes in with fresh legs, he's really hard to block. You have to throw another extra body, or you have to get someone to chip in before he gets into his gap on his zero technique. Collins, again, I think he kind of took over the game late in this one. He got a near pick, and then he also had a wrap-up on third down one play later. He just kind of took over a drive and shut it down, and the Jags had to punt. The Giants, I think, were looking a lot better in the backfield as a whole, but I really want to see the linebackers flowing a lot more. I was really hoping for more solos because, again, this is a team that typically the stat crew leans favorably to solos, so I was hoping for a little bit more numbers. I'm hoping Carter maybe gets a little bit more of the share of the load next week. He was kind of in and out of the game, kind of coming in, coming out, because I didn't think Vernon was going to be playing as much as he did. They had said in the injury reports coming in that he was going to that he was going to be on a limited snap count.
I thought he wasn't going to play at all.
Yeah, and then they changed it last minute. I'm like, all right, so maybe Carter's just going to change, but that's kind of what happened. So, again, I still really like Lorenzo Carter. I think he's worth a very small pickup now because I feel like later in the season he's going to be worth something. Their next game is going to be at Dallas. Again, if you can go out and get Jenkins, which he should be owned in most leagues, but he's a guy who's going to be solid, especially if the Cowboys are passing. From what I saw in the Panthers game, I don't know who's going to be making plays for the wide receivers, so there may be some balls that are going to be picked off in that one. Next up is the Jags, the away team. And again, this game was also one of those water games. We had a lot of rain games this week. This was another one that was wet throughout the first half as well. I kind of forgot to throw that in at the beginning. For the Jaguars, Miles Jack had 10 total tackles, 7 solo, 1 interception, and 1 touchdown. Smith had 7 total tackles, 5 solo. And Barry Church had 6 total, 6 solo, and 2 tackles for loss. I was really hoping Barry Church was going to take a lesser role so I could get my boy Harrison in there and get him some snaps. But Church was just playing really, really well in the safety role today. He was coming in the box and pressuring and also getting those blitzes. I loved seeing it. I'm starting early in this game. I was seeing spurts of that dominant D-line we saw last year at the Saxonville. But again, I didn't really see Ngakoue this whole game. I think he racked out with 1 total tackle. I was really hoping to see him get more involved, but I didn't see him rotating in and out very much.
And I know it's one of those things we don't typically cover, but I feel like he had a lot of hurries whenever I was watching Red Zone.
Yeah. Yeah, and I thought when he was in, he was effective. But again, we have been bumping him for stats, and he just wasn't in on those plays where they were really running the ball, I felt like. But, I mean, again, they're still finding ways to use everyone and utilize them well. Because when you have this many playmakers, you got to find out the perfect spot to put them.
Yeah.
I feel like they found out last year they have a lot of playmakers, and they got to put them in the right spots.
Not only that, but it's hard to play all of them in fantasy.
Yeah, it really is.
The opportunities.
Mm-hmm. I felt like the Jags were playing really well in man coverage. I feel like they do this well every week, but I felt like this week they were really shutting down a lot of the stuff. I mean, OBJ still had over 100 yards, but Sterling Shepard, who I really thought was going to have kind of maybe hopefully a coming out party as number 2 with Ramsey being taken over. I thought he was going to get a little bit more, but they pretty much shut him down. Later on in the game, Barkley basically made a Madden cut on Miles Jack, but I want to say Miles Jack got up and ran that play down as far as he could, so I had to give him a lot of credit on that one. And in that same play, he also gave a nasty stiff arm to Harrison, the guy who I think eventually will take over Barry Church's role. DJ Hayden was breaking up a pass late to help close the game out for the Jags. I see some of what I see last year, but I see some new holes in this defense. The D-line didn't dominate like I honestly thought they would with the Giants' offensive line. I still think the offensive line for the Giants is not that well. I think Flowers is still a liability, but he looked a little bit better. Their next game is going to be home versus the Patriots, and I know I'm going to be trying to tune in and watch that game for sure because I know these teams are hoping that it's going to be them in the conference championships, or in the playoffs at some point in time this year. My guy for the Jags, I would go ahead and probably just stick with what you have. There's not a whole lot of guys that are sticking out, but I think DJ Hayden's getting a lot more work because he's kind of the unforgotten guy who comes in and plays nickel. He might be worth a pickup next week.
All right, I've got the Titans versus the Dolphins. Wesley Woodyard leads the Titans with 12 total, 7 solo. Ryan goes 7 for 4. Casey goes 6 for 2. Butler and Vaccaro both get picks, and Correa ends up getting a sack. Correa, who's dropped from the Ravens, gets picked up by the Titans.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, the defensive line is getting blown up in the running game. The Dolphins are finding a way to run through them, which is leading to a lot of success on inside runs and traps. So they're just blowing up the nose tackle. Correa is over pursuing on play action. Later on, he gets a sack that is uncontested. By this, I mean that nobody had touched him. He was just left unattended. Woodyard is flowing and finishing tackles well. He's staying home on the play action. One of the few Titans linebackers that's actually playing his assignment. Arakpo reads the screen, but he can't get out there. Mostly because he's Brian Arakpo. He's one of the slowest pass rushers there is, but he's strong, and that's why he's maintaining a job. Adoree Jackson is playing way off, something that we saw last year. But he gets beat on a rub route because he finally comes up and then he gets destroyed. Later on, he ends up missing on an easy tackle. His best craft is the return game, and he gets replaced by Rashard Matthews later on in the game. Wallace looks like he's got lead boots whenever he's breaking down to make a tackle. This is one of their linebackers playing for Rashad Evans. Brown is flowing to the ball really well. I like what I'm seeing from Blair Brown. Jayon Brown. I always get those two mixed up.
Yeah, you have that one with the Browns every time.
But Malcolm Butler snapped back off man coverage whenever he was taking Gesicki to the corner, and he ended up getting a pick, jumping that route. Later on in the game, he was roasted by Stills for a long game. Near the end of the game, Byard ends up diving, and he gets one hand on the ball and almost intercepts it. And I was like, man, can you just add to your lore, man? You're such a beast. So next week, the Titans are at home versus the Texans. Jayon Brown, I think, is worth rostering in smaller leagues. And if somebody has dropped Evans, I think he's worth picking up too. I'd rather own Evans over Brown.
Yes, 100% agree with that.
For the Dolphins, I've got McDonald going 8 for 6, Jones going 7 for 4, 2 interceptions. That's Rashad. And Kiko Alonso 6 for 6 with an interception. The defensive lines are not wrapping up. They're not generating enough penetration. McDonald is religiously playing in the box as the Joker safety role. This is something I like seeing because that typically leads to more tackles. For him, he was the leading tackler for the team, and that's always a good indication. He's not so great in coverage. He got ran over by Henry near halftime. It looked like he lost his jockstrap. Robert Quinn is never giving up on the play, and I missed this because this is something we saw in St. Louis and in LA. That we haven't seen in a while because he was underutilized last year, especially with his injury. McCain had a great pass breakup on a bobbled ball. He goes ahead and punches it out. I love seeing that from a cornerback. I think that's something that always reminds me of great corners. Kind of reminds me of Denzel Ward on the way he plays. Not necessarily the same caliber, though. We have to make that notification, though. Not the same caliber, because some people will love to run with your words. He's tackling with authority. He slaps the ball down on a tip pass later on. McMillan, again a Buckeye, is still struggling to fight off offensive lineman blocks. This is something I've seen from him in college. At the pro level, this is another problem. So I would still give the nod to Kiko Alonso over Raekwon McMillan, where a lot of people are trying to pencil in McMillan as the cheap buy. I don't think he's there yet. Rashad Jones got a pick on an overthrown ball. He T-boned Dion Lewis after he broke 4 tackles and he was headed for a touchdown. He gets thrown down by Walker and the ball lands right into his hands. It was absolutely amazing.
Wow.
But that's just the knack that he's got. There's something about this dude. It's almost like he's got his own gravity out there.
Yeah.
Kiko Alonso ends up spying the screen and shoots behind the offensive line for an interception, doing Kiko Alonso things. He actually gets picked up and then slammed to the ground in the process. The Dolphins, they play at the Giants next week. And for some reason I put Pac-Man Jones, but that is not where it goes. McDonald is the guy to own, or Howard.
So I think they play at the Jets, right?
Yeah.
Who just got their first win tonight? Because I know we're not going to cover that game, so I wanted to throw that in there. Do you think the weather delay that they had, the 3 weather delays, took any effect on this game? And should we see any fantasy difference in this game?
All right. I typically go down the list with my note-taking, and I'll put a hash mark whenever it's the first quarter that's up, whenever it's halftime that's up, whenever it's third quarter, fourth quarter. It was halftime whenever they ran into that problem, whenever they came back. I noticed no difference. The only difference I noticed was that the defensive line was getting more of a push, which is ironic because you would expect more slosh,
Yeah.
But I noticed it more for the Dolphins, and they looked like they were ready to go. Where the D-backs, they looked a little bit more tired, and we saw that whenever the Titans came out, and they were passing all over the field.
Okay.
That being said, Rashad Jones got both of his picks in the second half.
Okay. I was just wondering because I was really curious about how this 7-hour game ended up going with all the weather breaks in it.
Yeah. And another thing, I'm surprised that there weren't more hamstring issues, especially playing in those humid environments with the rain delay.
Exactly. Yeah, and again, there was actually, that game got pretty chippy as well. I saw that there were several injuries that came out of that with, Delaney Walker being out for the season now. And then they also had that little skirmish with the offensive line after he got kind of blindsided. Luad, I don't know if I ever say his name right, but the best offensive lineman on that team got knocked out cold. Yeah, Luan. And then he got up and he was pissed. He was charging. That's really the only part of the game I saw. All right, for mine, I had Tampa Bay at the Saints in New Orleans. This game was a high-scoring game. A lot of points scored in the first half. They combined for a little over 80 points. It was almost like watching a Big 12 game where there's no defense. But there were some plays to stand out. First off with New Orleans, you had Davis, who came over this year, new addition, had 8 total tackles, 5 solo, 1 tackle for loss. Williams, the safety, had 6 total tackles, 5 solo. And Jordan, of course, the guy who just does it all. He had 6 total tackles and 3 sacks, and he had a lot of hurry-ups, and he also had 2 batted balls as well. All right, for the first one, the New Orleans gave up a huge touchdown throw to Jackson, and the press coverage got beat, and they had a single high safety, and it was just a straight throw. Williams just couldn't get there to make a play. It's almost like he ducked under the wide receiver and let the wide receiver run wide open. Nothing? Last year playoffs? Okay. It's going to come up again, so just be prepared.
Like ESPN beating the Khalil Mack?
And did you know that John Gruden's the coach of the Raiders?
Is he really?
If we would have taken a shot, folks, we would be super hammered doing this podcast. I just want you to know that.
Way more hammered than we already
are. Cam was already back to batting balls. Again, I mentioned it earlier. He was already swatting. He has to be considered one of the best at the swats at this point. I mean, he did it so much last year, and he was already getting back in Fitzgerald's face. I love seeing it because I think the guy is just getting better and better. Williams gets trucked by Fitzpatrick on a touchdown, and he was also beaten by Jackson earlier, which I mentioned. Williams, to me, seemed like a real high-low guy. I mean, yes, he did finish second in tackles, but I think he's got some liability issues playing back there, especially most of his plays is when they were playing single high safety. He was having issues on where to go. He was just consistently taking the wrong guy. He was getting sucked down several times, and then he was just getting flat beat. he got sucked down on one for sure, and then he had 2 deep balls allowed to Howard. Basically, Howard was able to beat his linebacker when the safety should have been there to help him because the linebacker was clearly outmatched by Howard. Davis had a nice tackle for loss using the swim move. I do like seeing that. I feel like in this game you saw... Basically, I feel like I saw a lot of the same stuff I saw last year, except the linebacker plays a little bit better. I think Demario Davis is really helping this team out. Crawley had great coverage, but got out-muscled by Godwin on a touchdown. I really give this an asterisk. I don't think it was him playing bad. I just think it was a great play. And sometimes you just can't stop great plays. Things get chippy in the third quarter. There were 2 scuffles with personal fouls on both sides in about a 5-play span. So I don't know who exactly was getting chippy with someone, but they kept going at it. Lattimore gets beat off the line by Mike Evans for a long touchdown. It's not really something we saw last year. Lattimore was pretty much a shutdown guy, but Evans straight burned him on the outside. And once he got behind, he just couldn't catch up. He tried his best, but he just couldn't get there.
Yeah. For real, do you really think he should be burning him?
Mike Evans?
The way they play. Yeah.
You
know?
Yeah, I was surprised because I'm like, oh, crap, Mike Evans got a gap here, and then all of a sudden they launched it over there.
He's not a burner, man.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's that big. Deshaun Jackson, sure. I can probably still see it at this point. Yeah. But, yeah, that's what I was surprised about. Crawley gets roasted by Old Man Jackson a little bit later. Again, it was just bad spots whenever they got deep balls. I mean, Fitzpatrick was just dropping dimes out there, man. And that dude, when he runs, he does not give any Fs about his safety. Not as, unlike Kirk Cousins, who's going to get crippled if he ever dives at the line like that again, but I'll get into that in the Vikings game. Their next game is home versus the Browns. This could be 2 good defenses going at it, you know, especially 2 teams from last year. For me, I would go out and try to get Williams if he's available.
PJ?
Yeah. Just because he's getting tackles and he's going to keep getting thrown at.
Getting those tackles.
He was 3rd. Or he was 2nd in tackles, so we'll see.
Wait till they play Minnesota.
All right, next team is Tampa. The team coming in. I honestly thought Tampa was going to get destroyed in this game, so I had egg on my face because I picked them to lose. They had Levante David and Quan Alexander. Look at that, number 1-2, back at it again. Levante David had 9 total, 6 solo. Alexander had 9 total, 5 solo, and 1 tackle for loss. Hargraves, the former first-round pick, got banged up late in the game, but he did end up finishing with 7 total, 6 solo. And I had to throw in that Sitchy from Wisconsin had 2 total tackles and 2 solos. Both those on special teams, making plays. All right, so then there's only 13 tacklers on this listed for them this week, and one of them was actually tight end, so you only had 12 guys actually showing up on the stat sheet on defense.
Paul, I'm sorry, that's all you have to root for with Wisconsin.
Hey, man, I root for my own. Early on, Alexander was really getting taken advantage of by Kamara and then also some of the other wide receivers. He got burned early on a catch by Kamara, and then he got beat again on the next play. I think this is just, New Orleans attacked them. They scored within the first 4 minutes of the game. They were just pushing that tempo. And I really think that teams that can push the tempo in week 1 are usually going to get advantages because a lot of these guys aren't conditioned yet. They sat out most of the preseason, so they're not really up to NFL speed. Let's see. Kamara rolls over a couple other players and finally gets in the end zone on the first strike on that Saints first drive. Davis gets beat on an underneath throw and gives a 6-yard cushion while in man coverage. Cornerback Davis, I'm sorry, not Levante David. I wrote those down wrong, so I'm hoping I'm not saying them wrong. Quan got in on 3 straight plays on one drive to end the Saints drive. It was right in the middle of the third quarter. He just kind of took over that spot. So, again, he was getting roasted earlier, but then came back and made solid plays down the stretch. Davis gets beat by Thomas again on a long slant with a slight misdirection at the top of the route. The next play, he gets beat for a long touchdown to Thomas. I mean, they just couldn't – he could not come close to Thomas getting those balls, and he was just getting roasted on. I swear every time I saw Thomas score, I'd look and I'd see a number 33. I'm like, oh, that's Davis again. Oh, that's Davis again. I was doing that constantly throughout the game.
So you saw better play out of Hargraves than Davis?
Yeah, absolutely better play.
Weird.
Yeah, I know, right? the former first-round pick finally, starting to come around, which we've been rooting for. We were talking about that in the offseason, that we really hoped that he would take that step and become that guy again.
Yeah.
That we saw in college.
Dynasty owner. Come on, buddy.
Later on in the game, Vinny Curry had a beautiful sack. I mean, just came right up the middle and hit the quarterback. I love that kind of stuff. Tampa's getting beat on man coverage later on. The cutbacks were killing them. Every time they were cutting back, they were just getting burned by 4 yards. They were over pursuing on those, and we're just not sticking as close. Because I think if they would have been able to stick close, we might have seen some picks from Drew Brees. Justin Evans, he had a hit stick on a one-on-one to force a punt. It was a nasty hit. I mean, the guy didn't even complete the pass, or didn't even complete the catch. I think it was to Ginn, I'm pretty sure. But, man, he just came up, smacked him at the top of the route. I love that kind of stuff. Alexander gets a forced fumble by hitting Thomas right around the hips on a solid play. When Thomas actually broke 3 or 4 tackles and had a good gain, he just made a football play, just came around, hit him, wrapped his arm, punched the ball out. Kamara, later in the game, sneaks through Quan and David for a score. Later on, Davis gives up a 2-point conversion right after that. Again, Davis was just getting beat by everybody. The next game for the Tampa will be home versus the Eagles. I think for Tampa, I think Davis is probably going to be an ad at this point for me, just because if Hargrave's out there, get him first. But watch the injury because he did get nicked up late in that game.
Really?
But Davis is getting beat and he's going to keep getting thrown at. So I think he's going to luck into more tackles. I feel like he's the Trey Waynes type of role where he's eventually going to have to get better by getting the ball thrown at him. Mm-hmm. But again, Quan and David are probably going to be taken in all the leagues. Yeah. So, if not, I would say definitely jump on one if you can.
What about that safety?
Which one?
Justin
Evans?
Yeah.
Oh, Justin Evans. If he's not owned, go ahead and take him. I know a lot of leagues he's owned.
Yeah.
So if not, he's definitely worth a guy taking because he was playing down in the box a lot more than I thought.
All right. You would take him over Hargraves, though?
Yeah, because I tend to go to safeties over cornerbacks.
All right. Texans versus Patriots. Jackson goes 8 for 8. Cunningham goes 8 for 3. Joseph goes 7 for 5. Matthew goes 5 for 3 and gets an interception. Reeder goes 3 for 3 with 2 sacks. I actually started him. Wow, what a rare occurrence where I actually started a really good defensive tackle that week. Texans got roasted by Gronkowski over and over. They're committing 2 players in an over-under scheme where one covers the over, one covers the under. But it is not working. Cunningham and Jackson have shut down their side of the field and not attack Jonathan Joseph next week if I were playing the Texans. Cunningham is fighting across the face of the offensive lineman for a tackle, getting a lot of one-on-one tackles in space as well. These are the 2 things that I was curious if he could progress in his game, especially fighting across the face of offensive linemen because he's that leaner linebacker. He tends to struggle with getting back across. Didn't appear to be the case this week. Jackson is coming down into the flats to seal the run. Gronk was bobbling a ball, and Jackson ripped it out of his hands. The next play, he caused a fumble. Jackson stripped the ball, and Tyrann Mathieu recovered it. And I thought this dude was really impressive. Clowney is continuously fighting off offensive linemen that are trying to cut him. There's no surprise here. He's going to see that a lot. Probably not from smaller offensive linemen other than Patriots. Maybe the Broncos, the way they like to run their schemes, they like to cut the better pass rushers. I thought Watt looked really dominant inside and outside. Kind of returned to who J.J. Watt is after years of disappointing and being injured. Matthew got a pick on the ball that was thrown behind James White. It was thrown right to him, honestly. The next play, he shuts down an end around. Justin Reed broke on the football really well. He's showing signs that he can elevate his game in weeks to come. He lays the hammer down on the running back a few plays later. Cole looked better in the second half, and there wasn't much from him in the first half. I was kind of wondering if he came in to spell Bernard McKinney, because I didn't see him out there for a while. They're playing the Titans next week, and Kareem Jackson is a must-own if there's a safety start one, just because of the tenacity he played with and the way he was in people's face. Your thoughts on Kareem Jackson?
Kareem Jackson? I like Kareem Jackson. I said it like that for a reason. It's off a Vine video, but I like Kareem Jackson. I think he's a good ad.
Stephon Gilmore goes 8 for 7 with an interception that he fought over. A guy that a lot of people may not know about is this Bentley kid. He goes 7 for 4 McCourty goes 7 for 2. Flowers gets 1.5 sacks. Weiss gets 1.5 sacks as well. Texans are using a lot of single back to set up the play action after they've tried everything else and it's failed. This is typical for young quarterbacks and their offensive system to check down to the shorter routes and kind of set up the pass. Hightower got a fumble recovery on the very first play that was a bobbled read option. Shelton also almost forces a safety, but Watson got rid of it as he was falling down. Shelton looks lighter.
He does?
That's one thing I've noticed, which is kind of one of those things that's kind of crazy to think of him as lighter.
Yeah.
I just think of him grabbing the commissioner and shaking him. He reminds me of that aunt, you go home for Christmas and she grabs your cheeks, That's Danny Shelton to me. Lawrence Guy is crushing the pocket and closing rushing lanes. He's flowing across the backside when left unblocked. This is something you like seeing, especially from a guy like Lawrence Guy who can be bought on the cheap. Chung got burned on a tight end shot play. Really, he just gave up on it. It's almost like he thought he could cover it and get underneath, but he couldn't. Weiss is continually destroying the left tackle in a pass rush. And I think Weiss is the cheaper option if you think about Trey Flowers. If I could own Weiss or Lawrence Guy, it would be Weiss, just because I think he's a better pass rusher than Lawrence Guy. Obviously, one is playing in the rundowns, one's playing in the pass downs, and typically sacks produce more points.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he can consistently produce if given the chance. Rill and Gilmore fight over that ball that Watson threw up in the air to the back of the end zone. It was kind of funny because they were wondering if they had it because they were both fighting over it and neither one had control, really. It was like,
shared control. Shared control.
But Bentley was in on a lot of the first 2 downs of each drive, and he was effectively mirroring the running back and staying home against the running back whenever he would go out in the screen or run to the flats. It's something you like seeing. This is a kid that a lot of people don't know about, but he gets blown up on bubble screens because he cannot fight against offensive linemen. I would pick him up. He's probably going to finish linebacker 40 to 50, but those are those guys, if you're playing in a deeper flex league, he's a guy that nobody's really going to know about.
Yeah.
They're playing at Jacksonville next week, and Bentley is the cheap pickup. He'll be a 2-down linebacker that could give you a lot of tackles on the running back.
Yeah, say if this is a warm game, this could be in one of those hamstring games for sure. Being down there in Jacksonville, it's going to be humid.
You talking about for Fournette?
For anyone. Even for the Patriots defense, there could have a lot of guys who that's going to be a conditioning test.
Speaking of which, do you think any of those games will get rescheduled because of the hurricane?
I have no idea because they basically got lucky last year with the Tampa and Dolphins game. They basically just made them play on their bye weeks.
Yeah.
Week 1. I don't know what
That's so messed up.
Yeah, I know. It's like, hey, and hope you enjoyed your bye week on week 1. Now you get to play 16 straight games. Congratulations, you won this week.
Either one of them goes playoffs?
No, but I didn't think most of us saw Miami or them going. But yeah, that's
depressing.
Yeah, it really was because they had to play on their bye week. All right, my next game up was the Bills at the Ravens. And I just have to mention, of course, Ed Hockley's kid was the lead official, which I'm going to start looking at this thing up too. The condensed version, which we usually get between like 32 to 38 minutes typically on a normal pace game. This one was still 43, and it was 47-0. Or 47-3, I'm sorry. Freaking ridiculous. Midway through the third, I do want to note before I start these notes, midway through the third quarter, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen got to play. They brought in the scrubs because they were up 40. Ravens were up 40-0 at that point in the third quarter. So it was basically a scrub game after that for the most part. First off, I want to start with the Ravens. Zadarius Smith, defensive tackle, had 5 total, 4 solo, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss. The only D tackle that, unless Buck has one, that finished at the top tackler list. DJ Reader finished top.
2 sacks and 2 solos.
All right. CJ Mosley came in number 2 with 5 total tackles, 4 solo. Canada came in 4 total, 4 solo. And Kenny Young, the rookie, the guy we were kind of talking about, like what would his role be, He came in and had 4 total, 4 solo, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. He played good. Like in the stretches he played later in the game, he was playing early. They were bringing him in on some sub linebacker packages, but he did get a lot more play later on, and he was playing nasty out there. Like he was going out and smacking dudes, and I loved watching it. It was pretty good. Even if he wasn't there on the play, he was moving very well with the flow of the game. Early on for the Ravens, Tavon Young was making great plays. I really thought that he was looking really nice out there. I hadn't really seen a lot from him, but he looked really good. Humphrey made back-to-back pass breakups to end one of Buffalo's drives. I thought Humphrey looked really good throughout this entire game. I feel like he was constantly the one there making the big pass breakups or getting those near picks. Eventually, hopefully, some of those turn into picks. The Ravens get a fumble recovery on basically a punt bobble because it was wet. This is another game that it rained and it was soaked throughout that entire game.
Wet and soaked.
Yeah, you saw the punter. When he dropped that ball, his hands were like beet red. So you know it was super wet, and that ball hit his hands hard, and he just couldn't hold on to it. Zadarius Smith was basically, I've never seen Zadarius Smith play this well, but he was just getting open one-on-one, and people were letting him go, and I don't understand why. He almost made a pick as it slipped through his hands. That would have just been the icing on the cake for this game for him. 2 plays later, Brandon Carr gets a pick. He almost gets it in the end zone, gets tackled down at the 1. So later on in this game, and I explained this to Buck before we got on air, but Brandon Carr gets called for a pass interference. What's interesting is Kelvin Benjamin was on the outside, and he basically pulled Carr by the face mask into him while they were running because Carr was starting to turn his head to look for the ball, and they called pass interference on Carr because I'm telling you, if Carr would have gotten his head around, that would have been a pick because the ball was thrown behind, and it was easily would have been picked off by him. It was just a crazy play to see pass interference by the wide receiver pulling the guy into him by the face mask. I just haven't seen that before, so I thought that was really interesting. Tim Williams later on in the game, again, this is after kind of a lot of the other people came in. He came in and made a big sack to stop the Bills' drive inside the 10-yard line. That was after the really bad pass interference call, so they ended up getting out with just a field goal. For the Ravens, their next game will be home again versus the Chargers. For me, Zadarius Smith, if he is available, I would grab him. I'm super impressed by his game. I feel like in a lot of the defensive tackle ones, most of those guys slip through the cracks. If he's out there, I would definitely get him and definitely put a watch list on Kenny Young because if he starts getting more and more playing time, I think that he's going to be a guy who's going to be a fast pickup because I think he's faster than Suggs. He looked so much faster than some of the other guys he was playing around later in this game.
You're in a medium-sized league. Are you picking him up? Like medium as in start 2-3 linebackers?
Are you talking Young?
Yeah.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But that's why I said put him on your watch list and watch his progress because I feel like if there's any injury, he's going to jump in. I felt like this was also a really good game to see his talent. Even with a blowout, sometimes you get that extra nod or you get that extra play count. So I think those snaps are definitely going to be effective for him. Again, a guy who we had ranked near or lower in our linebackers on our premium podcast.
But because of the opportunity, we ranked him a lot higher.
Yeah, exactly. For the Bills, Lorenzo Alexander had 8 total, 8 solo. Matt Milano-Cookie had 8 total, 7 solo, 2 tackles for loss.
God, those sound
good. Yeah, it really does. Poyer had 8 tackles, 4 solo. Really, he had 3 solo. 1 he just kind of fell on top of, but whatever. Edmonds, the rookie, had 7 total, 3 solo, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble. That was on the same play. Really good. He looked really well in his packages he was brought in. And he disappeared at times, but Alexander really took over this game for me. He almost had a strip sack on the very first play of the game. The Bills did well against the tricks that the Ravens were doing early on. Wide open in man coverage in the man zone. Again, I thought the Bills' defense, I don't know what was wrong. I feel like they were prepared for the run, but then when they started passing, they were very confused what was going on. Milano hits a textbook A-gap and comes in and just stops the run. I love seeing that. He just came in and crashed on the Ravens. Edmonds with a nice forced fumble with 10 minutes to go in the first half. That rookie showing up. This is a guy who was shot straight up on everybody's roster, on everybody's wish list of drafting. Even for redrafts, he was put up there pretty high. The Bills' O-line, it looked terrible. I don't know what they're going to do in the future. I really feel, or I hope, that really Josh Allen gets the nod. But again, that offensive line is terrible, as Charles Barkley would say. They're terrible. They're having awful play. It made everyone look better on the Bills. Alexander makes a hit stick on an incomplete pass on the perimeter. Again, that was a lovely hit. Even though it didn't really count for nothing, it was awesome. Kyle Williams makes a great play to stop the dump off to the running back. This is a play that we see Kyle Williams make all the time, where he sheds the guard, pops out, and grabs the running back. This guy makes those kind of plays. Again, I really feel like the rain really affected the Bills' defensive line. They really just seemed a little bit sluggish off the ball. But again, the Ravens didn't get a lot of running yards either. So that's still something that's positive to take away from getting blown out on the road with only scoring 3 points. For the Bills, they also gave up a touchdown up the middle, and Snead basically broke through 3 defensive backs. I didn't even want to put down their names because I was too embarrassed about that play. The Bills had to defend 2 drives in a row with the Ravens inside the 20, and one of those drives started at the 1-yard line. So the Bills had, again, 2 drives back-to-back. That's not enough time for these guys to rest, especially in the first game, and they just got taken advantage of. I mean, it happens. It was one off a bad punt that was bobbled, and then the next one was off that pick by Carr. Lamar Jackson later on, basically, Lamar shakes off Jackson and basically runs around. It was like if it would have been Flacco, he would have gotten sacked. He would not have outrun Jackson on that play. But Lamar actually, I thought, looked decent. I mean, he got some starting reps in the third quarter, and I think he was used early. I do want to note that for people who are going to have to.
That one play.
Well, no, he actually had 4 plays. He had 4 plays in the first quarter, where he was brought out in packages. Again, I think they're going to work it slowly, but the guy can make people miss, man. He really can. He can cut on a dime. The Ravens' next game will be at Cincinnati. I believe that's Sunday Night Football this week. For me, again, I would have to go with Poyer if he's out there. I have a feeling he probably shouldn't be, but if he is, I would take him. Surprisingly, I looked in a lot of leagues, and Lorenzo Alexander's not taken in some of those leagues, the smaller ones. But if he plays like he did against the Ravens, I have no idea why people wouldn't want to add him.
He's a cockroach, man.
He is. And he's old, and I keep thinking he wouldn't do nothing. I thought Edmonds.
37.
Yeah, I thought Edmonds would be on the flip side of this, but Alexander just came out, and he was just on fire, man. For being in the rain, I think the rain was just sizzling off him in that first quarter because there was nothing touching him. It was crazy. But again, I look for the Bills to be much improved and not give up 40 points next week. They just were bad circumstances came with this game.
Did they pull their defensive players?
They pulled some, but most of them still got work. I saw some of the younger guys mixing in, but for the most part, they left Edmonds out there pretty much the whole game. Get him some reps.
And he still didn't blow up, man. That's disappointing. All right, we've got the Bengals versus the Colts. Hold on.
There's more.
Vigil goes 11 for 11, actually leads the team. Vigilum goes 10 for 9. I feel like he's some far-fetched story, that name, man. Bates goes 8 for 8. Brown ends up getting an interception. Atkins and Dunlap both get a sack. William Jackson destroyed the wide receiver. He sold out and missed on a tackle later on. Preston Brown winds up with an interception. He kind of bats it to himself, and then he ends up catching it. So hype. You should have seen him, man. He was livid, man. I love it. He ends up injuring his ankle in the first half. Can we confirm? Is he doing all right?
Who?
Preston Brown. I didn't see anything in the blotter.
I believe he's going to be all right.
All right. Jordan Evans looks okay in run support, but terrible in pass coverage. He got burnt by Eric Ebron for a touchdown. Nick Vigil is the best blitzer for the defense, I believe. Overall, he played well. Again, he led the team. But I like the way they like to blitz him through the middle, on the outside, both sides. And then the defensive linemen that they have, they can really suck anybody in and let him run through that lane. I thought Willis was getting a lot of good pressure in doses.
Was he kind of subbed in and out a lot?
He was.
Damn.
And even when he was in, it wasn't consistent enough.
Man, I'm really hoping for more, man. I took him off my taxi squad. I was really hoping for something to come out, especially with them, especially with William, man. I know, right? Jordan Willis, I'm telling you, is a good defensive end. I just hope it works out there.
He's that right defensive end that you typically think of, just the run stuffer.
If they actually would have cut Johnson, then he'd have more playing time, but whatever. They brought him back.
Well, if he were on the Raiders, they would have cut him.
Right.
You know, or
traded him for a second-round pick.
Yeah.
And probably giving up a fourth.
Yeah. Come on. All right, I'm not a Raiders fan anyway.
Yes, he is.
Dunlap had an extremely great game. He almost tipped the ball to himself, made an interception. You always like seeing the big guys do that. Bates was starting. It's something that I was really excited for. I even put it down with an exclamation point.
And that's Jesse Bates the third out of Virginia.
Mm-hmm. Wait till the fourth comes around, man. Even better.
Mm-hmm.
Just like fine wine. Denard gets a pass breakup, but he was beat on a rub route. He gets hit. He gets a big hit whenever he attacks the running back's hips. That was actually a beautiful play. I don't know if you've ever seen a grown man just crumble whenever he's running with the football, and then boom, his hips get taken out, completely loses all motor functions. You know?
So you got Ryan Shazier?
Come on,
Too
man.
soon?
Too soon. You know he's my boy.
You set me up with the not being able to.
No. It was nice to see Glasgow out there at defensive tackle and diagnosing the screen. I'd like to see more snaps of him. You know, I loved watching him at Michigan whenever we'd play him.
I'm a fan of. I'm a semi back burner fan of his. I really want him to do good. Yeah. It's hard for him to get snaps with that defensive line, man.
Yeah. I also saw Hardy Nickerson coverage on a potential game-winning drive. Traditionally a pass-rushing linebacker. What the hell is he doing out there?
Yeah, I'll probably pick him up this week.
Next week they're home versus the Raiders. There's a shtick, all right. Paul owns every Bengals linebacker.
Not anymore. I don't have Jordan Evans on my team. I had dropped him.
Or Vontaze Perfect.
No, I've never had him though.
But
last year I ended up having like 4, and it wasn't intentionally. Kevin Minter went to the Bengals when I had him with Arizona.
I think you even had Paul Dawson at one point too.
I don't think so. I don't know. I probably have owned them all.
Anyways, the Bengals are at home again with the Ravens. Bengals don't have an elite tier linebacker right now, especially with Burfict gone. And I think Fagellum is going to step up into the box and make that happen. He's always around the ball, causing turnovers. I think he'll be a stud for weeks to come. And this week he got a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, an interception, and a touchdown. A better stat line than Khalil Mack.
Wait, the Raiders didn't play till Monday. Oh,
with the
never
tackles,
mind.
Bro.
Okay.
No, but for real, he had the same exact stat line. Just
and I asked you this off air, so I want you to explain it to the viewers as well. Is this because of Williams getting ejected from the game, who was the original starter and listed as a starter, and Fagellum is listed behind him? Do you think this continues? This is a stepping off point?
My thing is, from Williams, I don't see that dynamic explosion that I see from Fagellum. Fagellum took over this game, dude. Like, go back and watch that game, and you'll see Fagellum just own the freaking Colts.
So is it kind of like watching Ioka or like Reggie Nelson when they had him?
Sort of, it was more Reggie Nelson, because Reggie Nelson always caused turnovers, man. Mm-hmm. This dude would punch balls out, and then he'd wind up with the ball, and they'd blow the whistle, throw a flag, and you're like, damn, he could have had another turnover.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You know when you see that, and you're like, dude, there's something about this dude. And he looks so great when he's running with that football for a touchdown. He's just like... His legs are popping like Forrest Gump and everything else.
I love when Buck gets hype on a guy.
Oh,
just the look on his face is like when he opens a Christmas present. It's exactly what he wanted.
We haven't even talked about the Colts yet. All right, you got Leonard going 9 for 6, Gathers 7 for 7, Hairston 6 for 6, Hunt with 2 sacks, Kenny Moore with an interception.
And it should be noted that Leonard is also a rookie from South Carolina State. Yep. Guy who we really liked in the Senior Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
Really was doing well in practices.
Yep. And Brendan actually wrote a good piece on him on the website articles.
He did.
If you haven't been to our website, IDPFantasyEmpire.com, we're doing weekly ranks now. We're going to have waiver wire segments as well at the top of the waiver wire of the week 2 ranks. So we'll go ahead and rank who we like, who we don't like, and tell you who you should pick up. Kenny Moore got an interception whenever the ball was hanging in the air. Darius Leonard was flowing the ball really well, but he would find himself out of position on screenplays. This takes time. I think he's the real deal. I was kind of waiting for him in real life game action, but I think he's transitioned well. Again, getting beat on those screenplays, you need to know how that's going to flow. You need to constantly be put in situations where you can work on that in practice and in the game. I was impressed with Margus Hunt. Not Marcus Hunt. Margus Hunt. He's a Lithuanian?
I believe so. I think you're right.
Or,
he's from that area, at least, if we're wrong.
He had tremendous hustle. I would see him running from the backside of a play, and he was very disruptive in back-to-back plays. He was actually playing his old team, the Cincinnati Bengals. Do you know that?
Mm-mm.
Estonian.
Estonian. Where the hell is Estonia?
Right near Greece, I believe.
Okay.
He slams the right tackle down for a sack. This is one of the prettiest plays I've ever seen. I actually shared it on our Twitter account. Did you see it?
Yes, I did.
This is refreshing to see after watching a bad Colts team for years, you know. Gathers ended up getting a decent pass breakup. You love seeing guys just punch the ball out whenever it's being bobbled. Quincy Wilson got beat on a 10-yard fade by John Ross, and all they kept talking about was the speed. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's 10 yards. 10 yards, bro. How fast are you going to be in 10 yards?
Well, the DeLorean can vanish within 20 feet, so...
The announcer did keep talking about how John Ross was in interviews and how much more confident that the coaching staff believes in him. This may be one of those guys that you need to pick up in your season.
Oh, yeah, because Marvin Lewis doesn't trust rookies, so he waits for their second year to really start exploring
Joe
that.
Mixon, right? Kiki, man. Did you see that?
Yeah. I knew you'd like it. I had a feeling when I saw the highlights, I was like, Buck's going to send me this. $20.
But Quincy Wilson was playing with a broken hand. A kid from Florida. I really like him. You know, he was a rookie, last year, 2 years ago?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Last year, yeah. He came out with Tease Tabor. Both
Tease
of them
Tabor.
Lining up on the... No, Tease Tabor's for the Lions. I believe. No,
I think it's Lions.
Hell, I don't know. Walker got a lot of playing time. This is Anthony Walker, especially whenever they moved and shipped out Antonio Morrison to the Packers.
Who still misses tackles, even though he's in a different damn uniform.
But Walker wasn't necessarily relevant in this game. I was kind of surprised. I just saw him there, and I'm like, maybe he's going to make a tackle. Kind of like that Jayon Brown dude for the Titans. He needs to be owned because he's a linebacker. You know, you see a lot of that. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, there's a linebacker on the field. Nobody knows his name. You know? Got to get him.
Yeah.
He's not owned. But Fairley ends up punching the ball out of, I believe, A.J. Green's hands, and Leonard recovers it. I like seeing that. Fairley, one of those guys that was in my bundle to get a, second-round draft pick last year with Deshaun Kaiser. I really like Fairley because this dude produces. He's always making turnovers. If he's not owned, go ahead and pick him up. But against the Redskins, I'm going to pick up Margus Hunt. I thought this dude could be way more dominant than I originally thought. And I think against the Redskins, I don't know what you saw with the Vikings. I saw Everson Griffin owning them.
The Redskins?
Hunter. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
there were Actually, I thought Sheldon Richardson played the best ball. Get into that.
Nice.
He by far, I thought, exceeded my expectations.
Watch out for this dude, though. As long as he doesn't get hurt, he's going to win you some championships at the defensive tackle spot.
Okay, I definitely will. I'm always looking for good D tackles. I'm trying to make a trade for one right now. Not at the current moment, but all right. I want to say not during the show. Yeah. My next game is the game that Buck just mentioned: 49ers at the Vikings at Minnesota.
Weird how that's working out.
Yeah, I know. We're just flowing. I love it. For me, I always start with the home team, so we'll get into the Vikings. You have Harrison Smith, the safety, going for 8 total, 7 solo, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, and the pick that basically sealed the game. You had Sheldon Richardson, the newest addition, the only new addition on this defensive line, coming over from the Jets. He was... What? Oh, no, Seattle. I'm sorry. I was thinking Jets and Seattle. I got you. I was like, I knew it was someone, I knew it was Green, but they were talking more about the Jets. He had 6 total, 4 solo, and a half sack. I think he should have been credited with the full sack, but, I'm not a stat person, I guess, so whatever. Ben Gideon, second-year player from Michigan, had 4 total tackles, 4 solo. A little bit different seeing him. I didn't think I'd see him in the top 3. But I honestly still have no idea where the Vikings linebackers were most of this game. I watched part of it live when I was just kind of watching on my phone. Just sidebar, my parents went to a furniture store, and I just basically found a couch with a massager. And I just was watching the Vikings game on my phone because that's the only game I could get.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, yep, just going to chill here and relax. So that's where I was watching it. But yeah, still didn't see any Vikings no matter how many times I watched it. Didn't see the linebackers. Only 14 tacklers on the book in this game, and one of them was Tyler Conklin, who's a tight end, so really only 13. Early on, Hunter was getting a lot of pressure on Jimmy G-string. He caused a lot of incompletions just by getting that lateral pressure. Hunter was chasing down the running back 2 plays later. Again, he was just firing off in the beginning of this game. A lot of the same thing I saw from Zadarius Smith on the Ravens, just firing off. Sheldon Richardson made a great play where he tore through the middle. He should have been credited with the sack, but he did get basically everything on that play. He made that play happen because he made everybody move and he made everybody shift and got Garoppolo to get out of his comfort zone. Honestly, I can still see the Tom Brady in him because if he starts to move, he has just some pressure instincts aren't there yet. But with the Vikings, that's a great test of how you can move. I really felt like the linebacking core was getting abused by Kittle early. This is a guy who I really like. I kind of wish somehow he'd pair up with Marshawn Lynch and they could do some Skittles commercials because it just kind of fits in with his last name. But this guy was just beating them in coverage. That's, again, why I didn't see a lot of them. I just felt like they were getting left in the dust. Later on, Wayne's knocked a ball out that should have been caught for a huge touchdown for the 49ers. Wayne ended up leaving that. Trey Waynes, who's a guy who I root for because he gets thrown out a lot, he left later with a knee injury. And then I'll talk about the guy who really kind of stepped in. Linval Joseph made a great strip at the goal line to get a Vikings turnover, and that's what he does. That's what he do. That's who Linval Joseph is, man. The guy just reached in there underneath about 4 other people and popped that ball out before his knee hit the ground. I hate the Vikings, but, man, I love that play. I honestly thought it was Harrison Smith who got it. I had to watch the replay 3 times. I was like, okay, I guess he actually did punch it out because it was just, if he wouldn't have got it, Harrison would have punched it out because he was going in Peanut Tillman style with the fist, and he was going to knock that ball out somehow. Mike Hughes, the rookie out of Central Florida, or University of Central Florida, UCF, the uncrowned national champions. He attacked a pass for a pick 6. Again, love seeing rookies attack. Wish I would have started him. That would have been 30 points my way, but we'll see how that goes with Trey Waynes out. Just a spoiler, he might come up again in this. The rookie Pettis for the 49ers, he had speed, man. That kid, and I was explaining this to Buck. This is a kid, if I was on the offensive side, this is a guy who I'm going to probably look at the target and get him put in my bench right now and hope he continues to roll because he was straight blowing by Kendricks. He split the secondary between the safety and the cornerback and made a beautiful touchdown grab. I can't knock the Vikings defense. It was just a great individual play. The kid caught it, already had the left foot dragging, tapped the right toe, got the touchdown. And that's awesome to see from a kid who's just now coming out of college because typically they have issues with the 2 foot. You see that all the time. They get 1 foot down, 1 foot out. Great play. I mean, he was making the Vikings defense look like they had holes, which we didn't see a lot of last year. Xavier Rhodes, a.k.a. Rhodes Closed. He got a pick off a bad throw from Jimmy G-string. Pettis was actually open underneath. If Jimmy G-string wouldn't have overthrown this ball, Pettis would have had a completed catch. Again, later on, Pettis gets the best of Hughes on a fade route. Hughes did his best to contain, just couldn't get there. Again, Pettis was the guy who was making moves against this Vikings defense. 49ers are moving the ball late. I feel, again, like I hadn't seen any linebacker play from the Vikings. Just hadn't seen them. I guess if they're not breaking a collarbone, they're not really doing anything anyway. Safety blitz by Harrison ends a drive late for the 49ers. And then later on in the game, Harrison Smith closes out with a game-sealing interception. Again, Harrison Smith just came on late in this game and really helped close it out. That's what he's done. That's what we expect from him, honestly.
Yeah, and sometimes he doesn't even show up.
Exactly.
I do want to note, as a Packers fan, you have quite a bit of notes on those Vikings.
Hey, man, I scout my opponents, baby. I look for weaknesses. No, I just felt like they were playing a game. I looked forward to this, and I probably should have prefaced this whole game with this. I think these are the two best defensive lines in the league right now. And this is my own thing. I think the 49ers are up and coming, but they have four first-round picks on their defensive line, and they're finally all starting to get to play with each other, play together as a unit.
As long as they're all healthy.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, coming into this, I feel like the 49ers defensive line is where the Vikings defensive line was 3 years ago when they were starting to come together and really become an efficient unit. So that's what I'm hoping for.
And that moved to a 4-3.
Yes, I think that helped them out massively. The next game for the Vikings is going to be at Green Bay. Hopefully this will be the revenge game. Hopefully Rodgers plays. Hopefully we don't let them get up 20-0 and then make a miracle comeback, but we'll tease that for later.
Hopefully
for me,
that knee's protected.
Yeah. For me, they go for collarbones. We're fine. For me, the pickup is definitely going to be Mike Hughes. With Trey Waynes hurt, possibly out, he's going to be the guy to pick up because Rodgers targets the guys that he doesn't know. Mike Hughes, but again, he made plays, but Mike Hughes is my guy for sure. I'm going to go try to pick up on the waivers. Again, I don't go for cornerbacks very often. That's just the guy who stuck out. For the 49ers, a rookie leading the way. Fred Warner, rookie from BYU, had 12 total tackles, 11 solo, 1 forced fumble, 1 tackle for loss, and a pass breakup. I just didn't write that down, but I remember it.
All right, Paul. Real deal or no?
Real deal if we see it again. Because Malcolm Smith was out, and then also Reuben Foster wasn't there as well. But, I mean, this adds a third linebacker to that rotation.
My thing is, a lot of the listeners are going to be on the fence asking that same question. Mm-hmm. You got $1 million setting on Fred Warner. Are you betting that he is the real deal, or are you betting that he's not?
After the game I saw against a good Vikings offense, that's a tough one, man. Because I know that Reuben Foster's got it.
Yeah.
I don't know if Malcolm Smith's got it where I'm like Malcolm Smith or die. I think Fred Warner can come in and take that spot now from how well he played.
So you're going to pick him above all three of those?
I can't do it above Reuben yet.
Okay.
If Reuben gets hurt again, there may be some wiggle room.
Okay. I'm just trying to tease out these questions these answers. Do you think that they find a place for this kid?
Yeah, I think they have to at this point.
Okay.
I mean, he literally was handling that game in the middle of the field, which is something that I haven't seen since Reuben Foster really started on that defense.
Yeah, and I didn't watch this game yet. I'm going to watch it. I watched Red Zone, and he was making plays, punching the ball out of Dalvin Cook's hands.
Yep.
Just making tackles.
And it was one of those, I feel like he learned what the Vikings were doing early. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's the BYU college graduate, but early on he wasn't being very effective against Dalvin Cook, and then all of a sudden they figured out, Dalvin Cook's going to get used a lot more than we thought, and then they started figuring it out, and he seemed to be sticking on Cook a lot.
Yeah.
Which I'll get to in
So,
this.
Real quick, Fred Warner, weak side linebacker, Reuben Foster, middle, Malcolm Smith, strong side?
I can see that, yeah. Okay. Again, I think he played well enough where you can't just say Malcolm Smith and Reuben Foster are back, we're going to put them in the same spots. There has to be somewhere for this kid to get in. Because you don't just play this well as a rookie coming in and starting and not get anything out of this, especially against the Vikings.
Knowing our luck, he'll probably retire like Chris Borland.
Yeah, he's like, we're done. We're done here. Again, leading tackler, second guy on the list this week was Buckner, defensive tackle. 7 total, 3 solo, 2.5 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. Jaquiski Tart came in the safety, 6 total, 5 solo, 1 tackle for loss. I feel like his numbers, even though he had 6.5 and a tackle for loss, I feel like he was in enough plays where those could have possibly been higher if the tackles would have fallen his way. Early on, Cooks was getting a lot of the touches and making plays early on this 49ers defense. Basically a sack by Buckner later on, and honestly, this defensive line looked to be clicking earlier. And Buckner seemed to be the guy out of these 4 that was getting open. Every time. He was the one who was just popping out, and getting open. So it was really nice. Earl Mitchell tears through the center, and this is a guy who I think had 1 tackle, but again, I love plays by defensive linemen. Mm-hmm. This dude comes in as a nose tackle. He tears through the center, tears through Dalvin Cook, and causes Cousins to move. Again, not a game changer, but this is a great individual play. And I feel like this guy, he's going to work a little bit more into these sub packages. I loved it. I loved that play, even though he didn't get a tackle in it. He still forced the whole offensive line to move. And that's great to see from one guy, especially nose tackles who don't score very much. Cousin drops a dime over Witherspoon. I was talking smack because I kept calling him Kurt, even though I know it's Kirk. And the guy was like, his name is Kurt. I'm like, nope, it's Kirk to me. I just kept doing it. But it was a great – I can't blame the 49ers defense for this one. I can't really blame Witherspoon. It was just a beautiful touchdown pass. Yeah, that was to Diggs, which is like the first Viking I accidentally auto-drafted, but it's whatever. I'm telling you, if I win this league for my auto-draft, I'm never going to hear the end of it. I'm just going to auto-draft in just offense-only leagues from now on. 49ers early on were missing a lot of ankle tackles. It looked like I was watching a Packers game where they were just diving at the legs and hoping that someone could grab an ankle. Later on, Dalvin Cook breaks 6 tackles before getting stripped by Fred Warner from behind. He basically made that play not look like the 49ers were a bunch of weak people. Man, I almost said it. Looked like a bunch of weak people because he came out and just wrapped him and just punched that ball out. That was the play for me that I was like, holy crap, that is a really good play. Buckner later on had a sack to close out the first half. Again, I like seeing sacks, so Buckner was, again, getting open. Seemed like the other 3 were taking up more of the offensive line's time. Coming out of the second half, Tart broke through the line for a tackle for loss. Buckner, I feel like, is on another level. And, again, he's popped up in my notes 3 or 4 times now. He gets a half sack. It seems like he's the guy who's stopping the dump, or if they stop the dump, they get a sack. It just seemed to happen that way in the second half. So I feel like they figured out and they game planned really well for what the Vikings were doing in the first half. Broken coverage allows for a huge gain to Thielen. Again, it was just a break. Someone miscommunicated what the assignment was. Tart later on gets beat on a tight window throw for a touchdown. That one was another one that was really hard to defend. It was really iffy, 50-50 type of deal. Later on, Warner gets a pass breakup as well. I mean, he's sticking to Cooks, and that was the thing that I really thought put the 49ers back in contention for this game until this play happened. And I was so depressed because I was watching this on my phone in Walmart, and I was so mad. No, I tried not to because my mom's was around. I didn't want her to hear me. But I was in the checkout line. I'm like, "Are you kidding me? This is what happened."
Everyone's looking at you.
I didn't yell like super loud, but I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, I'm sure the guy who's doing the checkout was like, "What the hell?" Like, I was just mad. Man, I wanted to say that joke. It's too soon. Okay, on a hard count. All right, this is on 4th and 1. The Vikings are coming out on a hard count. Everyone knows that they're not going to snap the ball. They're not going to snap it. They're going to take the penalty and punt the ball. And this is just inside 3 minutes left in the game. The 49ers could score a touchdown and an extra point or a 2-point and get back in this game and tie it. They go into the hard count, and with 2 seconds left on the play clock, Solomon Thomas jumped. Oh, my God. I mean, this is honestly the play that I feel ended the chances of the 49ers coming back in this game because they would have had the 2 timeouts and the 2-minute warning and could have possibly made a play. And it was just so depressing, man. It honestly made me mad and sad at the same time because this was obviously a no-snap play. And you have to know, this is football. Not, I know that he's a second-year player, but come on. Everyone was probably like, they're not going to snap the ball. And then he freaking jumps, man. Because I was really hoping 49ers were going to come back and make this a game. Next game for the 49ers, they're going to be home versus the Lions. The Lions basically landed a big ducat out there tonight on Monday Night Football, so this one may be a little more interesting than I thought it was going to be. For me, my pickup would be Buckner if he's available. Again, D tackles that produce like this are going to be hard to find on this line, but he seemed to be the guy standing out. Tart, if he's available as a safety, which I feel like in most leagues he's going to be 50-50 if he's picked up. But Tart was playing really well, and I feel like if they keep using him this way, bringing him down in the box and putting him on a running back or a tight end every once in a while, this could be a productive uprising for him.
Yep. I've got the Chiefs versus the Chargers. Anthony Hitchens goes 15 for 7. Murray goes 9 for 4, and Parker goes 8 for 6 with an interception. Ford ends up getting a sack. Overall, I thought the Chiefs' interior line looked great. The Chiefs got lucky with 2 deep drop passes by the Chargers.
Ugh.
One would have been a touchdown for sure. The other one would have been a deep gainer.
Benjamin.
Hitchens is in on a lot of tackles. He's looking good on the screen, and he is always around the ball. I put that in all caps. This dude's a freaking monster.
And an exclamation mark just in case.
Right, in case I forgot. Nandi is very aggressive and over pursuing, taking himself out of plays.
Boo.
Nelson nonchalantly tips the ball to the running back, and he's like, oh man, he caught it. He has a nice pass breakup after this. That was the pass to Eckler.
Mm-hmm. Eckler was making some plays just on the offensive side. That guy was making some good plays.
Right, and the Chargers have always loved this role. Who's the one kid? Danny Woodhead?
Woodhead, and then they also had Oliver for a while who made plays like that.
Sproles?
And Sproles, yes.
Don't forget about Sproles.
Never forget, he's still on my roster. He's my team captain.
Ragland was beaten space by Gordon. He got ran over by Gordon later on. I know a lot of people were high on Ragland, and we were always pumped. I was at least always pumping Hitchens. It's kind of good to see this confirmation, you know. Terrence Smith, number 48, a guy that I hadn't seen much of. Had you seen much of Terrence Smith? He's got dreads.
Not a whole lot. No, not that you mentioned it.
He was not giving up. He's not giving up on plays. He's never really the leading tackler, but he was always around the ball. He's playing in sub packages, but he got destroyed by the blockers. He looked timid in his approach towards them. Ron Parker jumped a route, and he dropped a pick later on. That could have been 2 picks for him. He would have had a great day.
That's 2 for me. Ray Lewis, shout out.
Bailey was extending a screenplay, and he almost catches the ball, but the running back ends up catching it and takes it on. Skandrick got beat on a double move, and he gave up another touchdown. That's 2 for him.
Skandrick is such a waste. Why would you go even pick him up?
He's better than Emerson.
God, he's a liability, man. Ugh.
Next week they play at Pittsburgh, and I would trade for Hitchens if you can. I think he's worth every penny, and you may get a discount because of the assists that he got are usually half of the payout of a solo. Mm-hmm. So next week he goes into Pittsburgh, and those all become solo tackles. That's 15 total tackles. That's 30 points.
Quick math.
I mean, I can't write better narratives than this.
Yeah, know? Exactly.
You got Desmond King, who goes 5 for 5. You got Emmanuel, who goes 5 for 4. A day who goes 5 for 3. And you have James with the sack. A lot of low tackle numbers. The defense is not taking proper pursuit angles. You see this a lot whenever you're playing faster guys like Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins types. They catch.
I was going to ask, does Tyreek's helmet remind you of like a turtle?
A little bit.
Is it like a weird cutoff, or is it just me?
It's kind of like that.
I didn't know if his regulation.
Mario Kart, you know, he just takes it off and throws it at the defender.
Yeah, it's like his helmet looks like it's like a sideways cut. Yeah. I don't know if I'm the only one who noticed it, but seeing him destroy on the Chargers defense, I was wondering if you had seen any more of that, because I thought that was weird.
Honestly, I'd never seen the helmet and thought about it like that, but I will look at it next time because
with his head down, it's so weird.
I'm sure you'll give me the Chiefs again because you think I like the Chiefs.
No, I actually had this on my 12-player list. I thought about keeping it because I actually wanted to do the Chargers.
Interesting note: we saw Kaiser White in on a lot of plays. The worst part about it, he was getting burned a lot. He was chasing Tyreek in coverage, and I was wondering why. It looked like he was taking the wrong pursuit angles. This is something that you see from a lot of teams that don't play Tyreek Hill on a yearly basis. It seemed like he was going to A whenever Tyreek was already at B, and then he was always like a second behind, always following. He ends up stripping the ball from Mahomes whenever Mahomes is held up, but it doesn't count. There was a whistle that was blown before then. Derwin James ends up getting a pass breakup, and he gets a snake blitz stock. What I mean by this, I'll talk about this throughout the year. Those stock blitzes are whenever they come around the edge and they're not blocked, and they're just going with a free range right to the quarterback. I love seeing those. I know it's kind of messed up because the NFL is trying to change that. But that unprotected quarterback, there's nothing more dominant than destroying that quarterback's ribcage.
It's like when you, like, for an hour you're cooking a steak and then you finally set it down and you're like, I'm about to destroy this steak. That's how it feels. Like, you've been just watching it the whole time. You're like, I'm going to destroy you if I get the chance. And you just smash that steak. I understand the feeling. I love that stuff.
Exactly. Just put a little dollop of butter on it.
Boom.
Anyways, James ends up making a smart play to just punch the ball out of bounds. I believe it was in the second or the end of the first half. I really like that. Great heads-up play. Rochelle ends up getting beat on the option multiple times. His job is to take the quarterback, and the outside linebacker is supposed to take the pitch man. And that's why they kept coming at him with it. They just, like, he was the guy backing up Joey Bosa, and they were like, oh, we got you, bud. Boom, boom. Sometimes they even faked, and then he would go after the running back, Perryman looked heavy. I don't know if you've seen him this offseason.
Oh, I watched a little bit of the Chiefs game. I didn't really notice that part, but I'll have to go back and look at that now.
He looked thick, man. And with a lot of injuries comes a lot of lack of cardio.
There's good and healthy weight, and you see that a lot.
Yeah, he definitely ate way too many steaks.
Probably. He's just hungry.
He missed a tackle, and he starts grabbing his back. This is something that we always worry about when Perryman goes down. Perryman ends up getting back in, but he does not lead in tackles with the low total tackle number. I think anybody should have. Anybody that started. Mm-hmm. Emmanuel got roasted by Anthony Sherman. I don't know if you saw that play.
I did not see that one.
That was pretty nasty. It was a great dime by Mahomes. Anyways, the Chargers play at Buffalo. Kaiser White is the easy add. If I'm just looking for somebody to add on this team, Derwin James, obviously, if he's available. But I think he played way more snaps than I expected to see him in. And I think he'll have more tackles instead of chasing a guy like Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, I would look for this Buffalo game for the defensive line and linebackers to have more tackles than the safeties and stuff, because Buffalo's offensive line looked horrible. I feel like they're going to be able to play on that very well.
So guys like Chris Jones, if you're in a small league, maybe stream.
That wouldn't be too bad, no. I'd agree with that one.
Or Justin Houston, if you're in a really small league, just because what we saw, I guess that was Lorenzo Alexander against the Ravens. Never mind.
Yep. All right. My next game was the Steelers at the Browns. One game that went to overtime. Of course, I got the one that went to overtime. It just happened that way. This was another game that was wet. Rained a lot. I feel like it's been raining in Ohio for like 40 years now. First off, we're going to start with the Steelers. I went a little backwards. I want to do the away team first. You had Vince Williams with 12 total, 4 solo, 1 tackle for loss. J.J. Swat with 11 total, 8 solo, 4 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, and 1 blocked field goal.
TJ.
I know. That's what I said.
TJ.
I said TJ. I said SWAT. I did say SWAT. I'm giving him the title now. Now, Watt was just on another level. I mean, I kind of accidentally started him in my auction league and it worked out well. John Bostic, the athlete, 9 tackles, 4 solo, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss. I will not lie to you, John Bostic looked way different than he did with the Colts. He looked fast. He actually looked athletic, and he was into this game. Like, he was actually pumping up everyone else. That is not what I saw in Indianapolis at all. It was crazy to see. I just think he's adapted the visor and the sleeve, and it's just working for him now. He looked like a different player out there. He looked like the super athlete like Buck thinks he is. All right, there were 7 sacks total in this game for Pittsburgh. They were able to get at, I feel like I'm going to say his name wrong now. I'm kind of afraid to say his name. Taylor. I'm just going to say Taylor. I'm not even do the first name anymore. Early on in this game, Bostic was closing on the bubble screens. Again, he seemed a lot faster than last year. He was following the run plays a lot better, way better than I saw in Indianapolis as well. TJ gets cut and still gets a sack. Again, he's getting chipped on and still getting through the line. That's what you love to see. Artie Burns saving a touchdown with a great defensive play. I'm really early on through the first probably honestly the first half, I saw a lot of energy from both sides. I feel like they were really pumped for this because there was a lot of hype going into the Browns, and the Steelers were coming in saying, you still haven't won a game, so we're going to, push it. You're still our rival. We know you very well. Later on in the game, Hayward was really showing his motor. I feel like he really came on late, and he was never giving up on plays. I love watching the high motor guys, and he's always on the high motor list. The Steelers honestly started taking over defensively in the fourth quarter. Even though they allowed points, I felt like they were playing actually really good. Sutton gives up a touchdown, then gets a pick to help move them into overtime to not get them a chance to win. In overtime, there wasn't a whole lot of great stuff. I feel like the Steelers were countering all the Browns' plays. For the most part, I feel like they knew what they were going to run before they even ran the ball. The Steelers end up getting a blocked field goal to end up with a tie. So I think this is the first tie for them since like 2002, probably. I think they've had one other tie. But again, the Browns did not win, and the Steelers technically did not lose. But if you look at Lev Bell's Twitter account, it looks like the Steelers lost. But Connor, he looked delightful. Next game for the Steelers is going to be home versus the Chiefs.
I like that, Paul. We don't use delightful enough in the English language.
Thank you. Trying to expand, for you guys. Next game is going to be home versus the Chiefs. I feel like this is going to be an Artie Burns type of game. I feel like he's going to be getting a lot more tackles. And honestly, I like Bostic enough that I'm actually watching him now. I'm not going to add him right away, but if he has another solid game, I feel like there's going to be some movement on him. But again, I'm going to probably give the Steelers game to Buck next week because he loves watching the Chiefs anyway, and see if he thinks Bostic looks better than I thought he looked a lot better. And Buck just loves John Bostic. He's going to get a jersey of him. Man. Raiders fan liking the Steelers. Not possible. All right, for the Browns, Schobert goes for 8 total, only 2 solo, 1 interception. Ogbanobi, I know I'm saying it wrong.
Bon Jovi.
I even practiced it and I still got it wrong. All right, another defensive tackle. He got 7 total, 3 solo, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. Mitchell went 6 total, 6 solo. Myles Garrett went 6 total, 5 solo, 2 sacks, 1 tackle for loss, 2 forced fumbles. Did you start him this week?
Who?
Myles Garrett?
I believe I did.
That looked like the face of no, I didn't. But
I'll check.
Because I didn't know how Garrett was going to do this week, and I thought with the run game he might. But, I liked his sack plays, which I'll get into as well. Another guy I wanted to throw in was Denzel Ward, the rookie. He had 6 total tackles, 2 solos, 2 picks. 1 was a great play, 1 was a deflection pick. But again, stats don't count deflections, so still 2 picks for the rookie. Buck's just hoping for the Madden card. That's the reason he's excited.
Yep.
Early on, the Browns are not getting to the quarterback, even with a 6-man rush. I felt like eventually they worked it out where they were getting some pressure. Did you not start him?
I started Clowney.
I was wondering if you did or not. I didn't play you this week, so I didn't really look.
Patriots offensive line, Steelers offensive line.
Yeah. Later for the Browns, Ward gets a pick by Roethlisberger, in case you don't know my acronyms for people. He basically was attacking the throw. Roethlisberger threw it in triple coverage. And his other one was off a deflection, gave up a touchdown versus Antonio Brown, but still looked great in coverage even though he gave up the TD. Garrett, man, he had a really good motor play. He came all the way around the outside and keeps running to get the sack. Later in a drive, he was called for roughing the passer. I thought it was a very iffy roughing the passer call. I don't know. I felt like they think Ben is made out of glass now and he's just going to shatter. And they're not Kenny Mills, so they're not rooting for Rudolph, so they're going to call that passer interference or roughing the passer. Later on, Randall, the new addition, got traded to Green Bay. He gets a pick on an overthrow. I felt like Ben Roethlisberger was just trying to make too much. I feel like he was forcing balls. Honestly, it's kind of what Matt Stafford did tonight. I don't think he felt comfortable for whatever reason. He thought he would just force balls in places and hope they stuck, and it just didn't work. Garrett with a forced fumble with 7 minutes left, and then Garrett with another forced fumble on the very next drive. Again, just getting in there and putting the mitts on them and getting those strips. That's what you like to see, especially out of a guy coming into is this now his 3rd year already? Was this his second year? This is second year. Miles Garrett. This is second year, right? Okay. I'm skipping ahead in time.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure it's second year.
Because him and Barnett came out same year.
Yeah. Okay. Avery collapses on Big Ben and causes a pick that Schobert got. Should have won them the game in overtime, but it was blocked by TJ Swat. The next game for the Browns is going to be at the Saints. This could be an interesting game because we do know that the Saints like to attack. But again, I didn't realize that the Saints have only won like one season opener in the last like 7 or 8 years. Crazy. I just didn't really believe that when I saw it.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. For me, the pickup for the Browns, I would honestly probably go with Mitchell. I thought he had a really good game, and he put up 6 solos. It's just, this is going to become, with the Browns, it's going to be matchup dependent. And with the Saints, I'm going to probably take a D-back and try to play them because I feel like they're going to spread the ball out. The linebackers make it a little bit more work, but I really think that's where it's going to be next week.
Word. I had the Cowboys versus the Panthers.
Yeehaw. Was this another wet game as well?
Yes and no.
They did have some rain, though?
Yeah, they had some.
Okay.
Lawrence went 7 for 6 and got a sack. Frazier went 7 for 4. Heath went 6 for 5. Jalen Smith and Malik Collins both got sacks. The defensive line is pinching in and getting beat outside on the read option. I look for the defensive backs to start whenever they face teams that would run the option because they're getting to the corners and they're getting the safeties. Jalen Smith got beat in motion 2 times. Anytime Cam would fake it to the running back, Jalen Smith would take off towards the running back and chase him down. He was hesitant later on, and this ended up proving to be the best option for him because then he could tackle Cam Newton. Heath almost had a pick and read the option well throughout the game. He was playing his role, and he makes a strip as well. Lawrence ended up getting a fumble recovery on a Daniel Ross forced fumble. Lawrence finally got pressure later on and ended up getting a sack. Anthony Brown is flashing throughout the game. Leighton Vander Esch doesn't play until 6 minutes left in the second and a little throughout the game. This is partly because of the groin injury that he sustained in the offseason, and he's been nursing it. I think Jones seems more like a natural corner to me. He looks amazing in run support as well. Byron?
Yeah.
Lee is getting ran through multiple times, and Damian Wilson cannot finish a tackle. Next week, they're home versus the Giants, and if Heath or Jones are available, go after them. Jones is going to be the guy that I expect to play, especially if I have a hole in my cornerback spot, and Heath is gone. What I like about Jones is great in run support. And what do I expect Saquon Barkley to do? Run to the outside.
What about Awuzie? How did he play?
Awuzie, he popped up in a couple instances. I saw him make a good tackle, but I didn't think it was noteworthy of putting on here.
Yeah, I was just asking for my own roster for next week if he was doing well enough.
For the Panthers, we've got Luke Kuechly leading the team, going 13-11. He actually comes out of the game. I thought it was a concussion. I think I tweeted and
I thought it was
you guys.
too. Yeah,
I was so scared, man.
Mm-hmm. Because it looked like he was dazed and confused.
Right.
Like his mouth was kind of open, his eyes were really wide. I was like, oh man, he got another concussion. Or I thought he also either that or busted his knee. I think what did he end up having?
Yeah, I think it was just a knee injury.
Okay. But he did return.
He came back.
Okay.
Shaq Thompson went 9 for 5 with the sack.
Yeah.
Jackson went 5 for 4.
Yeah.
Short had 2 sacks. Addison 1.5. Horton had 1.5. The Panthers have so much weight on their defensive line. I think this is one of the problems that the Cowboys actually struggle with. If you get these big maulers that get up in your face, it makes it tough, especially with Dak. Dak is starting to regress.
And I think that Frederick being out is really hurting them right now.
I think so.
I think it's crazy how much it's affecting them. And I tried to explain it because my parents were up. I was like, that's what happens when you don't have a Wisconsin center in there. It starts falling apart. And speaking of Dak, And again, this is not a political thing, so do not take it politically. He looked a lot like Colin Kaepernick in this game to me. And really spurts, I'm like, he doesn't know what to do with the ball right now.
Right.
Like, he wants to run, but he doesn't want to run, so he's trying to make stuff.
I think whenever you game plan against Dak and shut down the basic offense that they have, especially when they try and do everything in the slot and they try and give it to Elliott, if you can shut down those two things, especially with Dante Jackson, it makes it tough. Because they have those designed rollouts that they like to do with those young quarterbacks and then throw to the tight end who's not Jason Witten. It makes it really tough for a guy like Dak to make that decision after the first or second read and see the whole field whenever he's getting abused by the opposing defensive line.
Yeah, and the thing with Dak is I didn't ever see him as a system quarterback like I thought Kaepernick was. Once the system runs out, he's going to run out. But he just looked like he didn't look like Dak that we've seen before. But I think you make a great point with if you shut down Zeke, you're going to have to make him make decisions.
Another one of the stats that we saw at the end of the year, there's a lot of great people on Twitter, and everybody's always researching stuff and sharing it. One of the things that I saw on Dak was he had the most contested throws into tight windows. What does that turn into in the NFL?
Usually turnovers.
Yeah. Or batted balls, or low completions. So if he's trying to force stuff, he's going to end up turning the ball over, and it's going to hurt the Cowboys, especially missing the center who's calling all your blitz or picking up all the blitzes. It's going to be tough for them.
Literally the centerpiece, and that's not a pun. It just happens that way.
I saw Dak struggle, and I also saw Elliott struggle. If I'm in a standard redraft league, is it wise to move on from Ezekiel Elliott? You don't think so?
No,
at all.
You still keep the Ewok, man. You don't trade him.
Do you trust Jason Garrett to game plan though?
I'm hoping that. Because I feel like this was a good defense. And I don't know, there's some other defenses besides the Eagles that they can actually play against. I think Dak will get back to it, or not Dak, but Ezekiel will get back to the way he was. Yeah. But again, we had so much stuff from him last year that was just so positive that you're going to have some regressions in some games. It's going to happen.
His rookie season, I ended up picking him up in the Dynasty League first round draft.
Yep, because I took the risk and took Gurley right in front of him.
What I'm saying is I'm a truther of Zeke, but I don't think it's too soon to move on. I know this is a crazy take, but if...
And you're talking redraft.
Yeah. If this offense continues to struggle, wouldn't you rather be ahead of it than behind it, where his value gets depleted and then everybody gets scared? Because we see users that are so quick to respond to what Matthew Berry or people like that say. Once they start saying that, then you're screwed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then all of a sudden the window closes.
But you could easily get a really good running back and a mediocre wide receiver, or...
You should be able to get a good wide receiver and mediocre running back for sure.
Right, or vice versa.
Trade for an A.J. Green and a Chris Thompson duo.
I wouldn't go Chris Thompson, but something of the... even a James Conner.
Yeah.
James Conner and a mediocre Dante Moncrief. I'd be cool with that. Maybe. I don't know. I say that, but whenever I'm not actually doing it, they say the way to find a price is to sell it. That's how you get market value. But can you really get market value if you're not selling it? No.
All right.
Jermaine Carter is playing the strong side for Thomas Davis in his absence. Shaq Thompson is out there on sub packages though.
Yeah.
Addison is all over the field chasing down Dak. The first couple of plays, I want you to watch that game if you haven't already. Watch that game, and Addison is like this big giant monster, and Dak's like, "Oh no!"
Have you seen the Sasquatch commercial? It's like you're either friends with Sasquatch or you're running from Sasquatch. That's what that was like.
That's perfect. Late in the game, he ends up getting a strip sack. Luke was being Luke. Again, if you are looking for the prototype middle linebacker, watch this game and just watch him beast. There was one point where he ends up giving up a touchdown. I think it was Ezekiel Elliott running to the outside, but he just couldn't get there fast enough, and he was being held. But the way he just saw Ezekiel Elliott get the ball, and he was like, "I need to get out there." He was gone, man. I love it.
And I feel like you could be blind and still know that Luke Kuechly's good if you're watching a home game, because you'll just hear Luke all the time. And you're like, oh, the Panthers are on defense now.
Right. Shaq ends up getting a sack on a Will Blitz.
Yeah.
I thought he had a really good game. He looked good one-on-one. A lot of the same things that I'm seeing with Shaq Thompson right now, I think we will see with Zach Cunningham in years to come.
Okay.
Adams reads the tight end screen and blows up Swain. Adams is consistently in man coverage against Ezekiel Elliott. Dante Jackson has played really well in coverage and snuffs out passes his way. I think he looks great in run support. Dante Jackson's one of the better cornerbacks that I would pick up this year. I know we talk about rookie corners, and we've talked about who's that guy, that Tre'Davious White or Adoree Jackson or guys like that. I think Dante Jackson and Jair Alexander for the Packers are the two guys that I'd be picking up just because they play. They're built like nickel corners, in the way they attack the football and everything else. They're not the traditional long corner that can be or that use their length and their speed.
So you're with me on the Dante Jackson hype. I got you on the train now?
I'm finally on the train.
Yes, I got Buck on the train.
I bought the ticket.
I pushed because I kept watching him through all the Senior Bowl and the East-West Shrine game, and I kept saying, man, this kid looks good, and he finally coming around to me, man. I love it. And by the way, Panthers, put him in on freaking punt returns. I don't know what you're doing. Put him in on the return game. The dude was a track star. Put him in. It's that simple. Put him in. You want the Adoree Jackson numbers? That's how you get the Adoree Jackson numbers.
Paul's beating the table right now.
I love it.
Captain Munnerlyn is garbage. The only thing I saw from him in this game was that he recovered the ball at the end of the game. That was it. No great tackles, no great coverage.
I didn't really see anything great from him last year.
There are moments.
He has plays, but overall,
it's not consistent. Short was rattling Dak at the end of the game, and he was getting crazy with the ball. Dak, again, plays were breaking down, and he didn't know what to do. They were getting desperate, too. Next week, the Panthers are at Atlanta. I would start Addison and Short. I think they're both worth it. But Dante Jackson's going to be the number one corner on the team, especially with Bradbury on the other side, who's kind of built that resume for himself. Who's going to cover Julio? I don't really know. Who do you think is going to cover Julio? You think Dante Jackson or Bradbury?
I don't think Dante will. I think Dante will be on the speedier back.
One thing I noticed was they didn't really move the corners. Yeah. They didn't travel.
Yeah, and I think they'll game plan for Atlanta. Again, this is going to be a divisional opponent, so they know them better. They know what they're going to come out in. So it could be a good matchup of rookie on rookie if they actually get Calvin Ridley involved.
Yeah.
All right. My next game was the Redskins at the Cardinals. This was a game that I thought was going to be more fun to watch. It was not that fun to watch. I'm sorry for Cardinals fans who had to watch this game, because I'm surprised this wasn't more of a blowout than it really felt like. I'll start with the home team. Again, they were in Arizona. For the Cardinals, Josh Bynes, 11 total tackles, 8 solo. Baker, the other safety, he had 11 total tackles, 8 solo as well. And Bethea had 10 total, 9 solo, 1 tackle for loss. Now, for me, early on in this game, Trey Boston, my boy, the guy I root for, he was coming in hot, and I love when safeties do that. I feel like it sets the pace of the game. You come in and you blast somebody straight up in the first 2 plays, you hope it's going to set the pace for your team. Again, I think Trey Boston is a great vet that they brought in. I feel like I'm really hoping that eventually this connects and this kind of resons throughout the rest of this backfield, that, hey, you can go up and make a play, and if you miss, I'm here to back you up with my missile. I'm going to come in hot with all my dreads, and I'm going to blow you up. So, I like Trey Boston. I traded for him last year to hopefully make a playoff push. He kind of got hurt, but I really think he was a guy who is of value to a football team in real life, even if he may not make the stats. But Trey Boston was out there, and he was playing really well throughout this first quarter and later in the game. I feel like the Cardinals were really struggling with the run game, and this was evident by the fact that Old Man AP had a game, Chris Thompson had a game, even their third-string running back, even though they had like 5 get hurt during preseason, he was even getting 9 or 10 yards a carry. the Cardinals got to do something about their run stuffing or their run protection because it was horrible. They could not stop the run at all. I'm not even seeing really pressure on the passes from the Cardinals' front line. This was a defensive line that we kind of thought could have a potential to do something new. Again, this is a whole different defensive scheme, so these guys are still learning new areas to play. But I really thought I would see more from this defense because, honestly, I thought the Skins and the Cardinals were similarly matched. I felt like this was a good matchup of two even teams, but it just didn't feel that way because the Redskins were doing whatever the hell they wanted in the run game, and the Cardinals had no answer. Jones gets a penalty for jumping on top of Smith, even though the whistle never blew. So I don't really understand how that's roughing the passer when the whistle's never blown, but whatever. They must have probably bet on his brother when he didn't show up to a couple UFC fights. So again, later on, Trey Boston, he does get beat on the outside, but the wide receiver did have to dive to catch it. So, I mean, he was still playing great coverage. Had a near safety. Smith luckily had Jordan in the area because it was very, very close to intentional grounding. I honestly thought the Cardinals had the safety. I had to watch that play a couple times to really see if it was or not. Later, really the wheels started coming off, and this was like late in the third quarter, early fourth. There were 4 penalties in the third quarter alone that were just bad penalties. I mean, it's just stupid, like hands to the face, hitting here and there, and it was just bad, man. Just was nothing I wanted to see from the Cardinals, and I know the fans were not liking it either. All the running backs were having the ways of the Cardinals. I mentioned that again because it was still factual in the fourth quarter. One of the last plays in the game, though, on a dump off to AP, he makes a huge gain, but then he's stripped by Trey Boston inside 2 minutes left. Still loved it. Didn't change the outcome of the game, but I like seeing AP getting the ball stripped away from him. Makes me happy. Next game is going to be at the Rams, at L.A. Rams coming off a win tonight in Monday Night Football. So this should be, honestly, I think the Cardinals are going to have more problems because they couldn't stop the Redskins running game, and you're bringing in Todd Gurley, who's arguably one of the best backs, if not the best back in the league right now. So this could be another game where you're going to have to try to make something out of nothing. I would really like to see a linebacker pop up on this list besides Bynes and just kind of get up there and start making more tackles. Patrick Peterson was pretty low heard of, but I feel like it was more of just a running game, and they didn't really have much for him. For the Redskins, Brown went 5 for 5, Swearinger went 5 for 5, Nicholson went 5 for 5. Total solos. So I'm not surprised to see the 2 safeties up there. I'm not surprised to see Brown up here. One really big shocker. They didn't need to tackle a lot because they weren't on the field that much. Early on, Johnson was splitting the tackles early, which I love to see. He had a near pick by Dunbar. He attacked the route. So, I like when guys have that instinct to jump. It always makes it more fun. The Skins held the Cardinals to only 14 plays and 36 total yards in the first half. So they were basically getting them on and off the field at will. Later in the second half, the Skins continued to stick one-on-one tackles. I thought this was, at all the teams I remember watching, this one was the best in the fact they were hitting their one-on-ones, which, again, you like to see because that's a straight solo for you. Later on, my boy, Troy Apeke, he made a touchdown-saving tackle on a punt return late in the fourth quarter. Came off the punter and just spread it over, tackled his man. Love it. He was the last hope in that play. Again, Troy Apeke a guy who I've talked about in our rookie podcast, which you can subscribe to our website, idpfantasyempire.com. $5.99 gets you the whole year. So get out, or $4.99, I'm sorry, get you the whole year. So go out, pick us up, get those podcasts, go back and learn about these rookies who are showing up all the time now. Early on the first week 1. So again, Troy Apeke is a guy who I look for future. If there is an injury of any kind, he is going to be the guy who jumps in. Already becoming a special teams value. Skins close out the game late with a fourth and goal stop. At least so I thought. I think I'm going to probably mess up this guy's name, but Inteus Adaitis. I don't know how to say his last name. He got a strip sack later in the game that really closed it out. He's kind of a guy who I've never really heard of. I had to go look him up. The next game for the Redskins is going to be home versus the Colts. With the Colts coming in, I don't know if they're going to throw the ball or run the ball. I don't think they have much of a run game, so I feel like it's going to be more throwing. So if you could pick up any of them, I think Swearinger is going to be the guy who should be already played in most leagues. Go ahead and grab Nicholson if he's out there. I think he's going to be a guy who's going to be an easy add that could get you some good points.
Right on. I've got Seahawks versus the Broncos. Trey Flowers goes 8 for 7. Shaquille Griffin goes 6 for 6. Reed goes 6 for 6. Clark ends up getting a sack. McDougald has 2 interceptions, and Thomas has 1 interception. The defensive line completely stops moving after initial contact, and I find this disappointing. Trey Flowers looks good early. He gets burned a couple times, but is still learning. Earl Thomas ends up jumping a route. Shaquem didn't get out in the flats on the running back whenever there was a flare, and the cornerback took the slant route. The running back ends up catching the ball and runs in for a touchdown. I don't think Shaquem is ready yet, even though we love seeing the talent, we love seeing the speed, everything else. It seems like the game's just moving too fast for him. He's getting blown up in the runs and he can't shake them. He did end up reading a screenplay, but got washed out later on.
Do you think this is a needs more snaps, or is this a they need to fit him better? Do they need to adjust to him? Because he's a fast guy.
Yeah.
You know, do they need to get him in different situations?
Honestly, I'd rather see him play safety.
See, that's what I said. He could be one of those hybrids.
Yeah.
You know, that's how I thought his role would be.
Yeah.
Again, KJ Wright getting hurt and having to have that out procedure
Yeah.
put him in the starting lineup. But again, I was hoping for the world, man. I was hoping he's going to go out and just light it up.
Yeah, I don't think he's strong enough to fight against the offensive lineman. I think he's one of those guys that's better off being that knife in the back, you know, diagnosing, even playing strong safety, man, you know, in the box.
And just on a football note, it's great to see when brothers can play together, you know. I thought it was a great moment they had to with each other before the game started.
Yeah.
I mean, even though I don't like the Seahawks because I usually root against them, that's just a great moment in football. That just makes you proud to watch football.
Yeah.
And you got to admit, the Madden things are pretty funny because I saw one a buddy sent me where he got a face mask where his hand was. There was no hand there, so he got a face mask call.
Yeah.
Mind-blowing, man. And another guy almost had a pump block. If he would have had the hand there, he would have had the pump block. Love those ones, too. I think those are awesome.
Anyways, McDougald ends up taking out Trey Flowers whenever Trey Flowers makes a bad angle. Flowers is trying to get back, but he ends up getting tied up with the feet of McDougald. I think Bartavius Mingo still stinks.
He sucks.
And I'll never own him. Ever. Ever.
Never, ever, ever.
McDougald also got a pick. 2 of them, actually. Next week they play at Chicago. I'm going to go with Trey Flowers because I'm expecting Trubisky to make a lot of mistakes. I think Trey Flowers can capitalize on those. We have Davis going 8 for 8. We've got Miller going 7 for 6 with 3 sacks. Marshall going 6 for 3. Simmons and Pac-Man Jones both get interceptions. Derek Barnett gets 1. Barnett gets 1. Harris gets 1. Chubb gets a half. Stewart gets a half sack. Bradley Chubb got roasted in man coverage by the tight end. Carson jumped over Roby's tackle, which was pretty amazing.
Nice.
Simmons got shook by Disley. I'm really impressed by Simmons. He ended up getting an interception later on. Vaughn quietly had a great day that wasn't recognized. He had a forced fumble recovery, and he just stripped the ball from the running back and then took off with it. It was amazing. Did you see that play?
Mm-hmm.
Pac-Man is returning kicks and playing cornerback for the
Is it bad that I didn't even know Pac-Man was playing for the Broncos? Is it bad that I didn't even know that?
No.
I kind of didn't realize he was still around.
No, he just got signed in the last 2 weeks.
Oh, good. He's just changing orange jerseys at this point. I'm so confused.
Right. Prison cells. Wolf is back and in the lineup, but with limited snaps. Next week they're home against Oakland, and Justin Simmons must be traded for, picked up, or whatever you have to do. Package up to get him. I think he's so damn good. Last season, we finished off with him being our waiver wire guy like weeks after weeks.
Yeah.
And he showed it this week. Honestly, dude, I'm going to be selling the house to try and get him in a dynasty format. That's it.
All right, man.
That's all I got.
I like it. All right. My last game was, I don't know if it's the game of the week. I mean, might be. I don't. Bears going to Green Bay to play the Packers.
Compliments for his Packers. Yeah. Look at you. I don't know.
This one's hard because I'm trying not to let my fan out, but it's going to be hard not to put the fan out. Yeah, let my fan out. All right, start with this game. We'll start with the Bears and the fact that Khalil Mack shows up, who's supposed to be on a snap count, which he kind of was, kind of wasn't. I think Roquan, they stuck to his snap count for sure, but Khalil Mack showed up, man, and he was just going just all Madden, man. It was just, I don't know any other way to describe it. The dude, if you haven't seen it, you're probably living under a rock, but Khalil Mack was just out there making plays, and it was so hard to watch in the first half. Because honestly, I thought early on Green Bay played him really well, and then once Rodgers left, it was like, oh shit, here we go again. Like that's honestly was the exact feeling I had. I was like, yep, Kaiser is going to make some Hudley type of plays and really just screw it up for me. And yeah, to start with the top. Oh, go ahead.
Mac went full Clayton Fagellum.
Oh God! All right, for the Bears, Callahan went 8 for 8. Danny Trevathan went 7 for 5. Adrian Amos went 6 for 6. Prince Akamukamora went 5 for 4, and that's honestly because Rodgers was picking on him in the second half. And then Khalil Mack went 3 for 2, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. He had 1 interception, 1 touchdown. Just average stuff. So whatever. But I got to give all credit. Khalil Mack just was making plays, man, and he was making other people around him too. He actually made a play that helped Roquan get his first play, was actually a sack. So got in there, got the sack, and Roquan didn't play very much, but he did end up having 3 total tackles, 1 solo, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. For all you guys who were ones who drafted him early, honestly, I thought Leonard Floyd looked really well. I felt like he was complimenting, but not necessarily being talked about as much because Chris Collinsworth likes to just gobble everyone else down before he gets to the actual players who are making a difference. And I'll say I can't give it up. Hicks played a really great game coming off that side as well.
Hey, did you know Mac was traded?
Really? Is John Gruden coaching the Raiders?
Maybe.
Yeah, they harped on that a lot. I mean, but crap, you have almost the 2 most highest paid players on the field at the same time too. So the Bears throughout this game, again, the first half they dominated. They went into halftime and they came out and they went up 20-0 early in the third quarter. This was also a team, I thought Amos was making a lot of good plays out there. I thought Akamukamora was playing good in the first half, started getting beat in the second half. There were several plays where he was just straight picked on. And I think he got hurt earlier, but it was, I don't know if it was necessarily, I don't know if he was banged up the rest of the game, but it sure felt like it watching him play, because I've seen Prince Amukamara play a lot better than he did. Another guy who I thought was really underrated in this game was Eddie Goldman. He had 3 total tackles, 3 solos. I thought he played very well. Again, you're not expecting a crap ton of numbers from him. He's the defensive tackle, nose tackle, however you want to really list him. He's the guy who doesn't get much, but he provides a role. And when you have Mike McCarthy who comes out and does run, pass, next drive, pass, next drive, run, pass. Oh, what's the next drive going to be? Pass, run, pass? Oh, it's pass, run, pass. You get into a rhythm. I don't know why we don't get stopped all the time, which was happening in the first quarter. But Green Bay's defense, or the Bears' defensive line, was doing a very good job making havoc enough to make Rodgers have to either get rid of the ball or try to make a play, and it just wasn't working out. The Bears in the second half could not stop the comeback. Basically, Rodgers comes out. He goes down early, and that's honestly when I thought the season was over. I was like, yep, this is typical, man. We pay him $130 billion, and now he's going to be out another year. It was just bad circumstances. Wasn't actually a dirty play like the Vikings one was, but it was just football happens and he left on a cart, and I was like, yep, that's probably it. Now it's the Kaiser show. And, went to halftime, and Rodgers came out playing some heroics, and I don't know if what the Bears could have done to actually stop it, man. It's just, I don't know. When the greatest of all time starts playing, it's hard to stop him, man. And he was just throwing dimes and windows. And honestly, this is going to sound maybe a little outlandish, but I feel like the knee injury actually helped Aaron Rodgers. Is that weird to say?
No.
Because instead of him having to feel like he had to scramble around to make plays, he was just releasing. He was quick releasing, and the Bears could not stop it. They didn't know what to do because they're used to. I think they were expecting a certain Rodgers to come out, and he was just quick snapping them.
I think it was the pain pills, honestly.
Right? Just had him higher than a kite. Probably just stuffed it in some cheese curds and just had him eat them during halftime. For the Packers side of the ball, I was seeing a lot of the same stuff. They were coming out in the 6 D-backs. A lot of those plays, again, but I feel like early on they didn't know how to work with each other, and I felt like near the end of the game they were finally working as a unit. Again, if I would have asked you who the leading tackler was going to be, I would not have put Kentrell Bryce at the top of the list. Again, Kentrell Bryce was actually filling in for Jones, who was out this game. He decided to be listed as inactive right before it started, but he went 9 total, 8 solo, 1 sack. Clinton Dix went 7 for 7, which is crazy that he actually had solo tackles. Super proud of him. Did a great job. You had Blake Martinez go 6 for 6. The old man Williams went 6 for 5, and Nick Perry honestly had probably one of the best plays in the game, at least closed it out. He went 5 for 4, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss.
whenever I start him. And then whenever we go through our ranks, we're like, actually, he was playing pretty good. Like Robert Kimdiche, he had 12.5 points. That's just as much as Fletcher Cox. Did he play the same way? I don't know. That's one of those things that we have to go back and look at film.
Yeah.
But if he's playing at the same level and getting the same output, he's a lot cheaper than Fletcher Cox because I'd have to trade